Hey my friend, welcome to a new Strymon NightSky demo, and today we are going to focus on the sequencer of the pedal. Since the pedal came out a few weeks ago, I haven't seen a lot of demos and people covering the sequencer on YouTube, so this is my honest contribution to it. So you can expect me to demystify how to use the sequencer, and I'm going to show you 3 different ways you could use it musically. So first of all, I dialed in an ambient guitar reverb sound that I really like as a bass, and it sounds like this. Super lush. So first of all, we need to access the sequencer, and we can do that by holding the infinite switch on the right. And when everything lights up and the LED is red on the on switch, we are in the sequencer. So the easiest way to hear and test what the sequencer is doing is by freezing a note with the infinite switch. So I'm just gonna play one note and I'm freezing it. But I'm gonna remove the reverb for now so that we can keep the note and that you can hear my explanations clearly. So basically you have 8 buttons that are lit up right now, and I could press on them to deactivate them if I want. So to each of those buttons, you can assign a specific pitch to them that you will use with the sequencer function. And how you can assign a pitch is by holding that button and choosing the pitch with the size pitch knob here. So if I put the reverb back on, I hold one of these and I choose the pitch. I can choose my pitch this way, but now you probably noticed that this is not definitive notes or pitches. This is just every pitch in between of all the notes. So it's gonna be hard to choose exactly the tones and the notes that we want. So that's why we have a quantize function. Now we are on smooth mode so that we can access every note in between. But if I choose half step right now, I can choose any half step note that I want. And I even have the scale function. So if I choose the scale function, I can choose between 8 different scales. So if I hold that little square switch here, you see that now it lights up differently. So I can choose 8 different scales. So if I remember correctly, the first one is minor pentatonic. Second one is major pentatonic. This is major scale. This is Dorian mode. This is the blues scale. This is harmonic minor. And then you have whole tone scale and diminished. So you could choose between all of those scales to quantize the pitch. So for now, I'm just going to choose major scale. So now, if I put the reverb back on, so I can choose my scale like this. So for example, I could assign any note of that scale I want on all of these. So for example, just to make it simpler, I'm going to deactivate the 8, 7, 6, and 5th one, and I'm just going to assign some notes on them. So the first one, I'm going to keep the same note. This one, I'm going to press on it, and I'm going to choose the 5th. And then I'm gonna choose this one, and this one, let's say. So now I have all 4 pitches assigned. Once again, when you want to assign them, you just have to hold one of these and select the pitch that you want with this knob here. So now you have 2 ways of using the sequencer. You could do it manually by just pressing on this button here. Or you could use it as a tap tempo, like tum tum, tum tum, tap tap, so that you can find a tempo that you want for your sequencer. So that's pretty much how you assign the pitches and you use the sequencer. But now let's cover some ways you could use it musically that might be stretched to a certain extent what it was created for. So the first one that I found is to use it not even with the infinite note. So I'm going to release my frozen note, and you use it as a gliding effect to change the pitch of your reverb while you are playing. So I'm going to dial the reverb up once again, and I'm going to play just normally. And then you can use the on switch just to shift your reverb while you're playing. So now this might not be very musical, but we can do something with it. So for example, I could just choose one, and I'm gonna freeze another note just so I can see what I'm doing. Right? So the first one is gonna stay the same. This one is gonna be one octave lower. This one is gonna be a fifth. So that might be more musical if I have just octaves and fifths to shift when you have some close intervals that can clash a little bit. And the second thing I'm gonna do is to add a glide effect so that it's not as abrupt when I'm changing it. So with all the little square buttons here, you can hold them and access a secondary function that is hidden on the pedal. So if I hold a 1 that it's below the shape, and I play with the reverb knob here, I can set up the glide function. So when it's all the way to the left, you have no glide. But when it's all the way to the right, you have a maximum glide time. So if I do exactly the same that I did, I'm gonna press the on button just to glide my reverb sound while I'm playing. You see that it's gonna be much slower to reach the next one. So once again, that might be better, but it's not very musical. So you can find a sweet spot for it. So once again, I'm gonna press and hold the square button below the shape one, and I'm gonna dial the glide back a little bit. So instead of having it at a maximum, I might put it here, let's say. So let's hear what it makes, how it makes a difference. So you could definitely use that as a musical little movement in your reverb like this, and you don't have to put the reverb as high. I really wanted you to hear it, but you could have it more subtle by dialing back the reverb knob and having more dry signal if you want. So this is the first way you could use it musically, as a glide effect on your reverb. The second way is actually very, very cool. You could create your own backing track to jam on top. So for example, just to make it simple, I could do a simple blues jam, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put the sides pitch at the middle so that that's gonna be easier to change the pitch afterwards, because middle means unity octave. So you have one octave on the right and one octave on the left when you're using scale or half step. So now I'm just gonna play a dominant 7 chord to play some blues, something like this. So So now I've frozen my chord here. What I can do is to push that button here. Once again, remember, it's to choose our scales to quantize. So now I was on the major scale, but I'm going to use the minor pentatonic, since this is the one I'm going to use to improvise on top and play on top of my chords. So now I'm going to quantize in minor pentatonic. So I'm going to use different chords. So the first one, I'm going to, that's going to stay the same chord. The second one, I'm going to use the fourth chord. Now I forgot to remove the glide function. So I'm going to press and hold below the shape. I'm going to dial the glide back right here, and that's going to be easier to choose my chord. So once again, I'm going to do it again. So this is the chord that I want first. The second chord. Ah, that's better. I can really choose my chord. So 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. So now I have all of my chords, right? So that's basically a 1, 4, 1, 5. So I could use that and manually tap on it to jam on top if I want. But now the problem is that sometimes when you are playing with the reverb on top, it can create some weird resonance while you are jamming. So one thing you can do is to press and hold below the target button here. And then by choosing the reverb side, you can choose, you see there's a color changing here. So when it's red at the right, it means that when you are freezing a note or a chord, the reverb is still gonna be active when you play on top of that frozen note. But when it's red on the left right here, so it turned red, it means that the reverb is not gonna be active when you play on top of the infinite. So that's what I'm gonna do right now, because when I'm jamming on top, I don't wanna have those weird resonance. I just wanna have my dry tone only. So if I put the reverb back on, now it should be dry to jam. Completely dry, so now I can really jam my blues. Really cool, isn't it? So you could create all sorts of combinations or chords or things like these to jam on top. Because, like I said, you have access to many scales. You have minor, major pentatonic, major scale, Dorian mode, and all sorts of things like these. So this is really cool to use it as a backing track. And the third way is to use as a psychedelic sequencer and really twist your sound as if it was a synth or something like this. So you could use it really, really like it was intended to, like this. So I could activate all of those. And I could quantize to half step if I want. Freeze a note once again. Yes, I really recommend to put the size and pitch knob at the middle when you're doing that. Because it's easier. Now you have access to higher and lower notes. If you start like this, for example, now I just have access to lower notes. But if I start in the middle here and I play the same note, now I have access to low and high notes if I want. So now I could use some random notes here. And then I can play with that and just be psychedelic. I can deactivate some of them. Wow, so this is not the best example in the world, but this is truly something that you can do with it, just to freeze one note and have fun. I could have done something way more musical if I were using a scale, for example. So if I'm choosing a Dorian scale, I could just freeze a note once again, and I could assign some really more interesting notes. I mean, you could go on for hours. I'm just twisting knobs and see what they do. I really like to use the filter knobs, the high cut on the low pass function here, because it does a kind of a big sweep of low frequencies that I really like with it. Some knobs seem not to be active, like the shimmer knob was not doing anything. But you could play with the size and the length and all of the modulation and filter effects while it is playing at the same time on the sequencer here. So I don't want this video to be longer than 20 minutes, but if you have some questions, I'm going to use it more in the upcoming weeks, and I could answer them for you. These are the 3 ways that you can use it. You can use it as a glide effect on your reverb itself while you are playing. You can create a backing track for yourself, or you can create some psychedelic synth-like sequences and play with that and the filters and really have fun with it. So these are the 3 things that I found to be the most fun with this pedal. And if you listened all the way through, thank you so much. I'm just going to ask you for one thing: subscribe to my channel if you want more content. I am teaching about ambient guitar. I have tutorials, I have lessons on guitar chords, I have original music that I post on a weekly basis. So if you like Strymon pedals and ambient guitars and reverbs and things like this, you're gonna love my channel. So click on that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to never miss my future videos. All right, take care, and until next time, au revoir.